BBC Radio Sheffield.
And I'm Rony. The motivational speaker and writer Frederika from Doncaster was born in Pescara on Italy's Adriatic coast. She moved to Luxembourg at the age of 2. She came to Britain to go to university. She met her husband there. She was a teacher. These days she speaks and writes on the subject of happiness, as well as advising small businesses on social media. How to be happy, Frederika's story. And she's had some things not to be happy about in her life as well. Frederika, you've written a book called 9 Essential Ingredients for a Happy Life. Are you happy today?
I'm very happy today, yes.
What are the ingredients that make you happy at the moment?
Well, lots of them. I'm generally a happy person, and I think some people are naturally happier than others, and I'm blessed that way. I think I've always been a very happy person, but I'm surrounded by people that I love and that make me very happy. My children, my husband, my friends. I think I've got internal resourcefulness to pick myself up. Life isn't always fantastically brilliant, and I think I can be a happy person even if I go through a miserable time from time to time. It's drawing on my inner resources really to make sure that when things do get tough, I don't stay down for too long.
What's the connection between that buoyancy, and your lecturing on happiness, and a book which actually contains not only ingredients for a happy life, but also recipes for Italian food?
Well, I am Italian. I'm Italian and German, actually, but really when it comes to food, I'm Italian. And to me, food is at the centre of family life and of spending time with people you love. And as much as I really love eating food, and anybody who sees me can probably tell that as a testament, but I enjoy preparing food particularly, and I enjoy feeding other people and spending time around the table with people. So it's really the special occasions, meals and recipes that are passed down sometimes from generation to generation. And it's that kind of food. As soon as I cook it and I eat it, it takes me back to all those happy memories, and that for me is the connection. It's the way that the food and the cooking and certain recipes link into memories in life as well.
There's a moment of memory which would touch me enormously. You found yourself after this international childhood at Bradford University,
yes.
And there was this bloke, in the corridor above or wherever he was, who came round for a meal, and you won him with some food. He'd never eaten spaghetti before.
Well, he'd eaten food. You know, he'd eaten pasta at school, which we're going back to the 80s now. It probably wasn't great, and he'd never really eaten properly cooked pasta. Now, we'd been going out for a few weeks at that point, and it was coming up to the end of term, and we weren't going to see each other for a couple of months. So I decided to do a bit of a romantic evening, and I cooked him spaghetti alla carbonara, and I did it properly, no cream, and did it, with all the right ingredients, and he absolutely loved it. So I don't know if it was me or if it was the spaghetti.
And you've been together ever since?
We've been together ever since, yes.
Frederika, there's a moment in the story, it's in the book, it's also in your life story, where things don't go right. You mentioned there are times when things are low, and in particular connected to your 2 daughters.
Yes, both our daughters, Charlie and Hannah, were born, unfortunately, with very severe congenital heart defects, and they both have very different congenital heart defects as well, so it's definitely kept us on our toes. We found out with Charlie when she was born. There was a bit of a query about the heart when I was pregnant, but there weren't any major concerns. They said, we'll have a look when she's born, and when she was born it was obvious that something wasn't right because she was very blue. And then with Hannah, we found out when I was 20 weeks pregnant, so halfway through my pregnancy. Charlie had actually been doing very, very well with her condition. She was on medication, and she was going to need surgery at some point before she started school. But with Hannah, they actually told us that she had a condition called pulmonary atresia, which is very rare. It basically means she had no artery going from her heart to her lungs, which is a fairly essential requirement to life. And they couldn't see some other blood vessels that are sometimes present with this condition that just develop abnormally, that allow a baby to live for a few months before they need surgery. So they thought she was at the very worst end of the scale. And they did unfortunately advise us at the time that it might be a good idea to have a termination.
Why didn't you go for that?
I was 20 weeks pregnant with a baby that was very actively kicking inside me, and it was just something that we couldn't go through. You know, we did think about it. It was a very difficult decision to make because we already had a toddler, and we had to consider the effect that it might have on her, knowing that she had a heart condition, if we brought a sister into the world for her who would potentially then die of a heart condition at a very young age, and what that would do to her psychologically in terms of her fears for her life. But ultimately we were very lucky.
How are they both now, your daughters?
Everybody asks me that question, and there's no simple answer. They're doing very well, and if you didn't know, you would really not have a clue that there's anything wrong with their hearts. You nearly lost Charlie altogether. In fact, Charlie says she died. Is that right? Yes, she likes that as a little bit of a party trick to shock people. Talking about, did I tell you about the day I died? Yes, when she was 12 in 2010, one morning she just didn't wake up. It's obviously difficult to even just think about that day, but we're again so lucky, and that's the thing. You know, she could have had that cardiac arrest at any time, but she had it at 7 o'clock in the morning when her alarm was going off, and she was due to go to school, which meant that we noticed that she wasn't getting up. The ambulance was just parked around the corner, so it was there in about 2 minutes. It did take them 4 goes with a defibrillator to shock her heart back into some kind of normal rhythm, but she didn't actually regain consciousness at that point, and they then eventually took her to Leeds, where she was kept sedated and paralysed for 8 days in order for her brain swelling to go down, and during that time we had no idea.
Did you think you'd lost her?
Well, yeah. I mean, obviously, as the days went on, things started to look better. But they did ask us in Doncaster whether we wanted to just let her die peacefully in an adult A&E, which we obviously said no to. Somebody was watching over her, I suppose. She not only made a recovery, she made an absolutely full recovery with no damage to her brain or physically or anything. And she was back at school within a few weeks.
And she's going to go on to Cambridge, is she the one?
That's what she wants to do, and hopefully she's doing very, very well at the moment. With she's heading towards her GCSE exams at the moment, and for the subjects she wants to do and stuff, she seems to be doing very well.
You look happier now than you did as you told that story. Frederika Roberts talking to me. Part 2. After ABBA. Thank you for the music. BBC Radio Sheffield. I'm talking to Frederika Roberts about her life and times, about her new book, and about the title that she might give to the book about her life when she comes to write it. Her life took her from Italy, Luxembourg, Bradford. She's now in BBC Radio Sheffield talking about it. She found a husband in Bradford, 2 children, both of whom had heart conditions. She herself speaks 6 languages. She was a teacher. She left teaching to start running a recruitment business and various other businesses that she's run since. And these days, what are you up to?
These days I am a speaker and author and a trainer. So one of my businesses is I train businesses in social media marketing using things like Twitter and Facebook, etc., to promote themselves effectively. And my newish venture that's been going for a few months in conjunction with my book is to speak about happiness. A lot of people have always asked me, you know, why are you so happy all the time? Things keep happening to you, and you're always smiling, you're always laughing. And I thought, well, let's look at that. What is it that I do that makes me happy? And actually researching it, found that there are a lot of fundamental things that you can do and that have been researched the world over by psychologists in terms of what makes people happy. So I really want to share that with people, and I've done that in my book, and I do that through speaking.
Share a bit of it now. If we want to be happier than we feel at the Mo, what do we do?
Well, the very first thing you have to do is to want to be happy, because if you're happy wallowing in misery, you're never going to be able to pull yourself out of that. Happiness can take a bit of work sometimes, for some more than for others, but you have to want to be happy and put that work in. And there are things like asking people for help. You know, we find it so difficult as human beings to admit that sometimes we struggle, and it might be something really basic like information we need, or sometimes it's really emotional support or financial support. And if we just pluck up that courage to ask people for help, it can really enhance our happiness. But the absolute biggest biggest thing for me is gratitude, and it's being grateful for what you do have rather than focusing on what you don't.
What kind of people want somebody to stand up and make them happy? Is it businesses trying to screw the workers a bit more by stopping them joining trade unions and being happy instead? Is it that sort of...
Well, if you look at it from a corporate point of view, then actually there's a lot of research that has been done and carried out. There's an author called Sean Acor who's written a book called The Happiness Advantage that details a lot of the research that's been done into actually the fact that happy people work better, are more successful, experience life in a way that they feel they're luckier, and yes, have less absenteeism and are more productive. And salespeople outperform, happy salespeople outperform unhappy counterparts by 56%.
But
now,
it
that's
might be
huge.
better in the long run if people were unhappy doing something like selling stuff to people for money they haven't got with the goods they don't need. It might be better if they're unhappy and go and do something useful. Happiness might not be the best thing. We might sometimes ought to be unhappy so things can change.
Yes, I think you do need to, and one of the things that I do talk about actually, I have a chapter called Pain is a Good Thing. So it's, as I said before, it's not all about painting on a smile and pretending everything's all right, but really, when bad things happen, you do have to let yourself acknowledge them, and you have to let yourself feel that pain, because otherwise you can't change things.
You've got the book, you are 41, the book's called Recipe for Happiness. If you were writing your autobiography, your life story, what would you call it?
Now then, this is a bit of a challenge, having just written a book. My reserves of inventiveness.
Have you run out of invention?
No, it'll come back, but I think it was something like my mad, hectic, happy life. Things were something. What did I say?
Well, that's
something
exactly
about,
what you call it. You call it my mad, hectic life in your note to us for this interview. But you then did this, and maybe a quote, or it may be you saying it, in which case it's a quote from you. The magic happens when things don't go according to plan.
Yes, that would be my subtitle, if you will, my strapline. Well, you can make the best plans in life, and things don't always go according to plan. In fact, a lot of the time they don't. And if you think about my girls, when anybody thinks about having children, all they want is to have a healthy child. I certainly would never have wished to have 2 children with severe heart conditions and all the traumas that brought. However, if we hadn't got the daughters that we have, then our life wouldn't be what it is, and our daughters wouldn't be the way they are, and the maturity that they have, and the sense of humour and everything that are, all their own individual quirks wouldn't be there, because they wouldn't have had the experiences that they have. And I probably would have a very different life, because I wouldn't be as appreciative perhaps of some of the things that I do have in life, because of what's happened to us.
Frederika Roberts telling me about her life so far.
BBC Radio Sheffield.